Hello friends, it's become something of a habit or a ritual because for the last 3 summers Greece has been my summer destination. Greece is surely known for amazing world-class beaches, but this time I went a step further and spent 12 days in total visiting Greece. The first 7 days were spent visiting the biggest Greek island, Crete, and I found out that not only does Crete has amazing world-famous beaches, but also has much more to offer. The second part of my trip was all the way to north of Greece, to a place called Kalambaka, to visit the famous Meteora stones. Crete is a massive island. It is divided into 3 parts, the western, the middle and the eastern part, with the largest and the most populated cities being located in the north of the island. These are respectively Chania in the west, Rethmino in the middle and Heraklion in the east. Since Crete is such a large island, it was a bit too ambitious of me to expect that I'll be able to explore all 3 parts. This is why after much research I opted for the western part, with the city of Chania being my base. As usual, there was a lot to see and a lot to explore, so let's begin. The biggest city on the western part of Crete is called Chania, often mispronounced as Chania. Chania became our base. We started our first day in Chania by visiting the city itself, which is a nice harbored city with a port, tons of restaurants, antique and souvenir shops, as well as different spas. This city is pretty busy during the day, but during the nighttime it gets even busier, as the city becomes one giant party. The Firka Castle. On the western part of the harbor located a fortress called Firka Castle. It is a fortress constructed by the Venetians, initially used as barracks and ammunition storage area. During the Turkish rule it was used as a barracks, and hence retained its Turkish name Firka. Chania in many ways reminded me of a Lebanese city called Betroun, especially with its iconic lighthouse. Overall, unless you're not visiting in summer, it's best to visit the city sometime in the afternoon, as temperatures during the day can be pretty high. The public transport inside Chania is pretty good, with buses being able to take you to public beaches in the vicinity of Chania. Regarding the beach quality, it is pretty good. However, as I said before, the southern and the farther away from the cities you go, the more untouched the beaches will be. As I was searching which beaches to visit in Crete, Elefonici kept popping up again and again, so I knew I had to visit. And let me say, this place is amazing. No wonder why it is regularly voted as one of the best beaches not only in Crete but also the world. Crystal clear blue water, pink sand, warm sun. Let me say this, swimming here was one of the most memorable experiences I've ever had. And of course, I just couldn't resist not taking drone footage. The lagoon topography is so that it is divided by a sandy midline. On one side you have a shallow bay which eventually fuses with the sea, and on the other side you have a sea directly. I recommend visiting Elefonici either very early in the morning, before 10, or in the afternoon after 4 p.m, as most people are already gone. Plus that way you'll be able to catch amazing sunrise or an amazing sunset. Also, in case you're wondering why the pink sand, that is due to decomposed shellfish with pink pigmentation. There are some nice tavernas and cafes near Elefonici. However, other than that, there's not much to do. So I would say that one day is enough for Elefonici. From Chania, our home base, we took a tour to Gramvouza Castle and Balos Beach, which are located on an isolated tip on the northwestern side of Crete. The bus takes you from Chania to the port of Kissamos, which funny enough isn't such a good word in Arabic. From there, with a boat you are taken to Gramvouza Castle, and from there to Balos Beach. Gramvouza Castle is a Phoenician fort with long history, built initially by the Venetians and then used by the Greeks during the Greek War for Independence, and subsequently conquered by the Turks. Once the ship arrives on the island, you have two options. Number 1, swim on the beach below, or number 2, ascend upwards toward the castle. Both options are actually very compelling, but we decided to go up. The fortress itself is not in the best condition, as it appears to not have had much restoration in recent times. The condition of the fortress, however, can be forgiven, because the most amazing thing from above is the view. The fortress itself is located around 140 meters above the sea level and was built around 1570. And once again, I couldn't resist not taking my drone out and flying it around the castle. After around 90 minutes, you should get back on the boat, and then you are taken to Balos Beach, which is located just 20 minutes away. And looking at this place, you'd be forgiven if you mistook it for Elefonici. They look pretty similar, both are amazing. Balos Beach can also be called Elefonici 2.0, or Elefonici with mountains. The place is gorgeous. And just like in Elefonici, the nature seems untouched, with wild goats called Crete roaming around and sometimes annoying the tourists. Here you will spend around 2 hours, which is more than enough for a good swim and to enjoy the view. You can reach Belus Beach either through a boat tour or by renting a car, but be careful, the road to reach Belus Beach is not a good road. And from what I read, most car companies or car renting companies would rather you not drive their cars there. Our last stop on Crete, but certainly not the least, was the Samaria Gorge National Park. Initially, this trip was planned as our second day activity, but due to the strong heat wave of 42 degrees Celsius, the park was closed and we had to rebook the trip. The gorge itself was formed due to geological changes, specifically an earthquake, which split the mountain in half and created the gorge. The full hike, unlike other hikes, starts at an altitude of 1,200 meters and goes down to the sea level. The hike spans around 16 kilometers and ends at the village of Agia Rumeili. The full duration of the hike can last up to 6 hours. I would describe the hike as being two parts. The first part starts from the top of the mountain with a steep decline into the green forest. From here, you have the best views of the mountains themselves, followed by a more flat terrain through various forests. The second half of the trail resembles a more desert-like dry terrain with very little trees and hard rocks, so good shoes are a must. The good thing about this park is that every few kilometers there is a resting point, a checkpoint, with a water fountain, a toilet, and rangers from the national park in case you need any help. The gorge itself is mostly untouched and contains many wildlife, including the famous Crete goats again. the end of the hike you reach a small village of Agieromeli, which is isolated from the rest of Crete, and the only way to get into the village or out of the village is through a boat. Here you can find some cool restaurants as well as pretty nice beach. We booked our trip using Get Your Guide app, but you can find plenty of other resources online. Finally, I headed north of Greece, to Kalambaka, to see the famous Meteora rock formations. Kalambaka is a city north of Greece, located right next to the Meteora Stone Formations. In Latin, Meteora stands for suspended in the air, or in the heavens, which I think perfectly describes this place. I have been wanting to visit Meteora for a few years now, but because it is located in an isolated remote place north of Greece, I never had a good excuse to go there. The rock formations of Meteora are formed from different sediments, including sand, slit, and clay, which accumulated over millions of years. What makes these rock formations amazing is not only the rocks themselves, but also the monasteries on top of these rocks. The monasteries were built by monks fleeing Ottoman persecution, the first one being founded in 1340, the Monastery of Transfiguration of Christ, or the Great Meteoron. Unfortunately, I couldn't manage to visit all monasteries and only managed to visit 3. The first monastery I visited was the Monastery of the Holy Trinity. It has a nice church and on the outside has an amazing panoramic view overlooking the city of Kalambaka. The second monastery I visited was the Monastery of Varlam, which not only has an amazing church, it also has an amazing museum, detailing how the monastery was built, as well as a general history of the area. Third and the last monastery I visited was the monastery of St. Nicholas Anapaphasas. What impressed me the most are all those monasteries, how they were built, and the monks who built them. It may sound trivial that this is just another monastery, but when you see these rocks, how tall they are, how hard they are to climb, you realize what a challenge it was to build these monasteries without all the modern tools we have today. The dedication and the faith those monks had is truly amazing. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you.